Hello. Hello. Let's see. Can we see it now? Alright, I'm probably gonna have to start that over. I wanna fucking die. But that's okay. It wasn't that bad. Alright. So let's get back to where we were originally then. Alright. So league recap. We'll start back from here. Uh basically league is coming back together. We got some sellers and some buyers. A lot of trading. The trade monster ended up rearing its head in week 8 and week 7. Seems like everyone was just waiting for the league probably to just even itself out a little bit before making moves. But now the moves have been made, and this is the current draft order. If you'll see it's still Mike at the bottom, um, and Pajak right above him, who are the two main contenders for the first pick. But other than that, you got Colby's and Onstroud 9 making moves to try to compete for this year. Currently still below the line, but it's going to be tight. I mean, we're week 9. I think it goes to week 15 or week 14, so we got 5 more weeks to make a move. I'm still somehow in the playoff race, despite my efforts to maybe tank a little bit more, but we'll end up seeing what happens there. I have a feeling I'll end up below the line by the end, but we'll see what ends up happening. Um, I will quickly address, like, I figured this is like I want to make sure this is not a misconception, but when if your bench is getting negative zero point 0.7 points and 5.6 points respectively in back-to-back weeks, there's like a difference between, like, you don't want this. Yes, this will end up getting you the number 1 overall pick almost guaranteed, but this is just showing that you have zero depth on your roster. Zero. You have absolutely nothing. And like, I know that he's gotten a lot of draft capital back for these trades that he's made, but that like didn't even that wasn't even reflected on what his bench is doing. So, I mean, it's tough to end up building through the draft. He's going to really have to nail on some of these picks here, Mike. Um, but I just wanted to make sure people, I figure people understand this, but having a bench that doesn't score points is not good. Yeah, that's all I have to say about it. All right. Had a couple, just touch on, I guess, the fact that, let's see, the trade deadline. I wanted to make sure I discussed this before going through to the trade talk. That is week 11. Week 11 is the trade deadline, so make your moves before then if you're gonna make anything. All right. So let's talk about the trades. So as far as the trades go, let's start off with trade etiquette. I already kind of talked about this in my previous 10 minutes that didn't record, but this is pain. I'll say it again. Um, First things first, these are just like complaints I've heard from some people, and I just want to end up addressing them. The first one is responding in a reasonable amount of time. When it comes to people offering you trades, like this is going to happen throughout the year, like up to week 11 and in the off season, especially in the off season, this is going to be more important. But when people end up offering you trades, like you're reasonably expected to get back to them like within a couple days, really. Like I think like a week is really pushing it on most trades, but be as prompt as possible as you can be when responding to people with trades, whether you're countering them or just declining them. That's the first thing. Second thing is I wanted to the I will say the second main problem that I've heard people talk about is the trade calculator. And I wanted to address this again. The trade calculator was really only used because startup values are so random and variable when it comes to having so many picks in a draft. It's really hard to describe where people's values are, so having the startup values is the best way to utilize those for everyone that really had no clue what was happening. As far as in-season trades, I want to reiterate that this trade calculator, the way that it works for players and not picks, is that it's their current estimation of their, or it's the estimation of their current dynasty value. So I want to say that when you're sending a trade to someone, never send them a screenshot calculator to try to justify what you're doing. Basically, if you're doing that, you're not using your brain. You're not evaluating the players yourself. You're just listening to what the values of the players on the list is telling you to do. And that's not a good idea because I'll show you. You don't want to be doing this because when you look at players' trades and their values on this website, they change drastically in short periods of time. So, like, let's say it was like week one, and let's say I was like offering, or I wanted, or let's say I want Tony Pollard because we don't know what he's going to be at this point, but he's looking good, right? Heading into week one. And I offer you Puka and like Brian Robinson. So Brian Robinson's probably hasn't changed much, but Puka's has changed like drastically. You'll see that this trade, as of right now, is just an absolute fucking landslide in terms of this. But if I offered this to you week one, it wouldn't be. It would actually be in Tony Pollard's favor. Because if you look at, where's my search bar? Let's go to Puka. Um, you'll see that he literally went in less than 2 months from 2,000 in value all the way up to over 6,000 at one point. That's literally a 4,000 point move in less than 2 months. So if I offered you that trade for Tony Pollard, you probably would have like spit in my face week one, saying like, "Yeah, right. Like, why the fuck would I do that?" 2 weeks down, 2 months down the line, you are crying that you didn't make that trade. And like, look at even from October 29th, which was his highest, all the way down to today, he's down another 400 points. Like these things move all over the place. 5,000, 3,000. So like using these as justifications for a trade being fair is not accurate. It's not accurate. So you don't even want to be using these when sending it to people. Like look at Kyron Williams, same thing. 1,400, like all the way up to like 4,000 and stuff. Like they change drastically in month and even like a week of time, let alone a month. So I would just suggest not doing that going forward. You can use it on your own to like help you if you want, but like if you send that to me in a message, like it's just not going to go well for you because I'm not listening to those values. Got to use your own brain and evaluate teams. So let's see. Um, on to the trades. On to the trades at this point. What we want to do is I'll go to my trade, which was first. Let's see. So let's see. Bijan for Godwin Montgomery in a second. So this was a fair trade, and you can all fuck off. Nah. um, yeah, I'm just fucking around. But basically, my team's running backs were an absolute joke. I had Pierce. I drafted Pierce and Akers. Pierce, like I think he has still the ability to be good. I think that a large part of the reason why he's not doing as well as he did last year is just because their offensive line's down like four starters. Like CJ Stroud is doing well, but he's also running for his life a lot of the time in that backfield. So I think that's, but I didn't want to take the chance on what was happening there. So I had Pierce, Akers, Montgomery, who became my first, and Warren. So I needed like a running back retool because for my team, I got enough youth that in the next like year or two, I can still compete if they end up stepping up, like with Johnson and Lamb and Smith and everyone. So I want to like get myself in a position that if I need to or I want to, I can compete. So that's why I made a trade like that. Is I need to retool the running back position. So I look through everyone's teams and figure out, who would need or who has excess running back room. And like, when you send a trade for Bijan, you're like never expecting it to like actually be like accepted per se, but I'm offering what I believe to be at least generally fair for Bijan. It really all depends on what you value Godwin Montgomery. I mean, my second could end up being like almost late first if I get down low enough. I'm not necessarily trying to compete this year, so I could end up with like a fourth or fifth or like a fourth or fifth maybe in the second, which is pretty low. Um, but Godwin, Montgomery's on a 4-year deal. He's in a backfield split, but they do have the best offensive line, and he's in the Jamal Williams role, who had 18 touchdowns last season. He's going to be good for at least like 3 more years, 4 more years. Godwin, Evans is leaving. He's about to become the alpha there, and they could be looking to get one of these new quarterbacks in the upcoming year. Also, DW is just missing some wide receiver depth for competing, but he's got Kelsey, so he's got to go. So Bijan is not doing as well as all those three combined. I mean, if you just look at Montgomery, he's had some 30-point games. Bijan like hasn't even touched 20. So it makes a lot of sense for him, who's just competing right now. Um, the next trade was on Stroud 9 and Mega Weenie Mites. I personally like Pajak's side here. I think it's a good trade and a fair trade both ways. Um, because Pajak gets younger, with Stroud and Pitts, who are, I think, two really great assets. Like, are gonna do well in the future for sure. You got a 2025 first rounder for Matt, which is good. I think that was a smart move by him because if he gave his 2024, like he now gets to keep his 2024, while also retooling to compete. So even if whatever doesn't work out for him this year, I think his team's going to be disgusting next year. Rodgers is going to be back, so Garrett Wilson's going to be an entirely different player. He's going to have the first round pick to supplement anything that he ends up doing there, and he could end up having a low pick depending on what happens to him. So he's in a pretty damn good position, regardless in the next year or two. But I like it for Pajak. I like Pitts a lot. I think that Arthur Smith is a fucking jag. Doesn't understand anything about how to get his best players the ball. And also Desmond Ritter is literally not a starting quarterback caliber. So I mean they'll figure that out over the next year. They're not going to have Heineke going into the next year, and I think Heineke is like 100% going to replace Desmond Ritter at this point. So I think they'll figure it out, and he'll pop off. I like Stroud a lot too. So let's see. Then Pajak again. Pop Douglas in a first for Tony Pollard. I like this move on both sides again. Good trade. Tony Pollard, probably underperforming so far this season, and we'll end up seeing what his deal is. He is franchise tagged, and he's not balling really this year. So people like there's trade rumors. They're like, oh, we want Derrick Henry. It's like, dude, like, okay, you have Pollard and Henry, but like for fantasy, that's just horrible. So we'll end up. I mean, I'm not saying that's gonna happen, but I think they might end up bringing a second person with Tony Pollard possibly. So I actually like Pajak's side on this. I like the 2025 first again. Same reason for Chris for Matt. Just gives you the ability to. Well, actually, I don't remember if Chris gave up his 2024 first in the Jamar Chase trade. I think he has it. So he can build off that. And I really like Pop Douglas actually. A little pseudo Julian Edelman PPR receiver. I mean, the Patriots have to throw to someone. Like this team is sorry as fuck. Like somebody has to step up, and so far it has been him. So I think he's gonna be a little Edelman PPR machine in the coming years. Hopefully, if the Pats are smart, they bring Edelman in to work with them. Um, Next trade was Cody's for Diggs. This was a pretty big trade. I like Cody going for it because he's got Cup and like a couple other pieces that like he was only a couple steps away really from like having a really good team. Do I think this is an overpay? Probably. Giving up Wandell, like I don't think Wandell is something to just be thrown away per se. Just because I think Daniel Jones, I mean, he did sign a big contract. He could be there for a while. I don't know. But I think he's skilled enough and he's going to get receptions that, like, the Giants will figure it out probably over the next year or two. And I think he'll be a good asset. And then 2024 first, which is, again, my my argument versus 2024 versus 2025 first, actually hurts you because you're not able to supplement your team immediately come the off season. So yeah, it's a good trade, but I think it's a little overpay. But I get Cody. Cody's going for it. I think he only has like I think he has like a first for 2025 and beyond and then beyond that he doesn't have anything like below a third. I think he has one third, and then everything else is gone. So he's made a lot of asset trades. But for Mike, that's good assets, and I think he did well in that trade. Swift, me again. Swift for Pierce, a second. So same idea as before. My running backs, I wasn't feeling them, so I was willing to trade for some running backs that hopefully could end up helping me compete in the next year or two. Um, I think Pierce could have been that, but I just again didn't want to take the chance. So I sent him out for Swift and gave an extra piece. I think it's fine trade. Everything's fine there. Then another blockbuster deal here for Kobe. We have Cousins, McCaffrey, and a second from Dave. A fifth, like we don't even have to talk about that because, as everyone will learn, like those that's like throwing it's like throwing pennies at people. Like the odds you get anything out of those is like microscopic. Um, but you have Cousins and McCaffrey to help. McCaffrey's a huge asset to get in a win now team. So he has McCaffrey, Diggs, Cup, and like whatever pieces he already had. That's like huge points. I mean, justified by the fact that he actually ended up beating me last week, like on absolute luck. But still, like even being able to put up like the 175 to compete is like huge. And he did, and Kirk got hurt. But I also like Dave's side of this trade, but it's a lot more speculative. Like I like Zay Flowers. I think he'll be like a wide receiver too, maybe, like topping out. It seems like they're or at least the Ravens' idea is to just get him the ball in space and like hope he does something with it. I think he's like topped out at like 15 to 17 points like every week. Like he never really goes into the 20s, but he's a solid piece and maybe he could take a step. AJ Dillon, I think he's in a contract year. Um, I actually don't hate AJ Dillon. I kind of just hate the Packers. So like we were talking about Pollard, like I think AJ Dillon would be like a really good fit for the Vikings. Or sorry, not the Vikings, the Cowboys. Um, like they just want like some sort of power back, and I think to supplement Pollard, and that would be a great move for them. But we'll see where Dillon ends up. And Murray again, like I think this has been confirmed, but I'm pretty sure they're saying that Murray is like 100% out next year. So you're getting an asset that you really don't know what he's going to be given, like receiver and offense wise. So it like he can ball, but like you just don't know what you're gonna get out of him. Like let's say he went to like Las Vegas, like that's sick. Like Kyler Murray, if Kyler Murray went to Vegas, that'd be fire. Like Devonte Adams, like Jacoby, like he could really ball out in a place like that. Or like he could end up going to like I don't know, let's say I don't even know. There's yeah, all the shitty asset teams already got young quarterbacks now. So, I don't know. I mean, it could be the Vikings. Vikings could go there, but I think that they don't want Murray. They're trying to lower their salary, and they're going to be in line for one of the big quarterbacks coming out in the draft. But yeah, I like the trade. It's just very speculative on Dave's side. And for Kobe, they're great win now assets. But that was before the Kirk Cousins trade. The Kirk Cousins injury. That sucked. Everyone hates to see that. Everyone loves Kirk. So seeing him go down hurts, puts a hole in everyone's heart for sure. But and also it also puts a hole in Cody's chances of maybe competing actually here after doing all these trades. He is like really needs a second quarterback. I don't think he has one. So if anyone's got anything for him, I think he doesn't have too much to pay for it without paying players. I think, but somebody can. I'm sure you can get a deal done with somebody for someone for sure. Um, then the last trade. I'm not going to go over the Russell Wilson for a second. Whatever. That's just again Rough Riders trying to compete and getting some extra depth. Um, when it comes to the last one, it was Kincaid and a third for Hawkinson. Kincaid. I like the Kincaid side of this trade a lot. I think that you're seeing now in these next couple weeks, or these last couple weeks, what Kincaid will end up being to the Bills. In my opinion, I was actually gonna shoot some trade offers over for him myself, um, but then ended up literally getting a receipt, like a notification saying that he ended up getting traded, which was pain. But I think that he could really ball out on that team. And I think that Gabe Davis, I think he's in a contract year as well. I think he is, or he's at least around. But they don't have a third option, and I think Dawson Knox is going to end up probably going away in the next year or two. Um, Allen will always be there, so I think he's going to ball out. Personally, going forward, Hawkinson, great player too, already a baller. And he's going to put up a lot of points. I mean, losing Cousins again sucks for Hawkinson. But they always say that a tight end is the best blanket for like a noob QB. But it's Dobbs. I mean, Dobbs has proven that he can play. We'll end up seeing what ends up happening there for sure. Um, but I think like when it comes to Andy's team, he's got a lot of youth. He's got Pierce now. He had Kincaid. He has Gibbs, and like I don't remember off the top of my head some of his other players, but like usually when you're like trading and stuff, like this is a fine trade, but you also want to like like securing the tight end in a tight end premium league. I'm not gonna badmouth it. But just in general, like you always want to have like some sort of idea of where your team stands in the league. And I will say, giving up youth um, for already established players when you're I mean, I guess he's not too far out, right? He's 3-5. Yeah, so he's actually only one maybe two games out of playoffs. So yeah, I mean it's not that bad a trade, but yeah, you just want to be careful trading for players when you might not be able to compete in the next year or two. But I think that's most of it. I think that's all the trades really. I mean, we've really shaken up the league here. We got Kobe trying to end up move into the playoff spot. If he had taken an L to me last week, that would have been pretty devastating. Matt kind of suffered that fate. Yeah, with only like 6 weeks left, 6, 7, whatever it is. It's not super easy to make up like a 3-4 win deficit. So we'll, but like I said, like even if like Matt's team doesn't end up doing that, I let his team is an absolute monster next year, absolute monster. So we'll end up seeing what ends up happening. But I think Cody's gonna make the playoffs. I think I'm gonna fall out of the playoffs. And then Corey, as much as he hates his team, I actually like Corey's team. Like Spears, A Chain, Brown, Addison, Pittman. Like I think this team, Higgins, like this team can compete. Like I know Corey. I've talked to Corey about some of these players, and he thinks his team sucks. But I think that that's like possibly a playoff worthy team, especially once A Chain comes back. Um, but yeah, we'll end up seeing what happens for everyone. Let's see. What do we got for matchups? I'm currently projected to beat Dave, which does not help my not getting into the playoff strategy currently. Mike's taking an L. Uh, Payjack's taking an L. This is wow. This J-Roy. Okay, this is my game of the week right here. J-Roy versus Matt is a huge game because if J-Roy ends up beating Matt, Matt is in a tough spot for this year. But I really do think that the team can compete. Um, like he's going to compete with J Roy in this game, I would think. So it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening. But this is my game of the week. All right. Well, that's it, everybody. Um, well, I'll be able to do these a lot more often in the coming weeks. My wedding is December 8th, so I've just had so much shit going on with work and uh, wedding shit that it's just freaking been a nightmare. So I barely gotten to be able to do this week. So yeah, we'll just end up seeing you in a couple weeks. We'll revisit probably one more time before playoffs, and then yeah, best of luck out there to everyone. May the odds be in your favor.